Okay, let's talk a little bit about graphs and interpreting graphs. So let's look at two different graphs here. Now, this graph is going to measure distance. So the y-axis or the vertical axis is going to be measuring the distance, and the x-axis will be measuring the time. So for both graphs, we'll do the same thing. So this graph will be measuring distance. So let's say we have, in this graph, we'll have a line that measures the distance like this. So we'll have it go like this. And in this graph, we'll have the line go like this. So right away, you can see that there's a difference between these two graphs. Well, the first thing you should notice is that, well, in this graph, on the left here, the line is steeper. And here, the line is less steep. So what does that tell us about the distance? Which one of these is going faster? Which one is moving through a distance, a greater distance, in a given amount of time? So let's look. If I take now, so in this graph, let's compare two different times. Okay, so let's say here, from this point in time to this point in time, let's say like this. And what happens in this, from this point in time to this point in time, how much does the distance increase? So the distance increased from here to here. So you can see that in this short amount of time here, the distance went up this much. So this is the distance that it changed, this much here. Now if we look at the other graph, if I pick the same amount of time, let's say from here to here, that's about the same. You can see that the distance that it went up is not nearly as much. It only went up a little bit. So in this amount of time, I went up this much. And in the same amount of time on the other graph, I only went up this much. So if you're moving less distance through time than you are here, then it means that this graph, what does it mean? It means that this graph you are moving faster. And this graph you are moving slower. So this graph is moving faster, which makes sense because the graph is steeper, and here you're moving slower because the graph is less steep. But what do they have in common? Well, they're both going up. The distance is increasing as you're moving through time. The distance is increasing as you're moving through time. But this one is increasing slower. So they're both increasing. So let's write that down here. So this is increasing. Change color. Increasing. So they are both increasing. And we can, in a real life example, this one would refer to someone who is, maybe someone who is running. So here, maybe this person is running. And here, this person maybe is walking. And when you walk, you cover less distance in a certain amount of time. So if I were to run for 10 minutes, I can cover a larger distance. Start here and there after 10 minutes. But if I'm walking in 10 minutes, for example, imagine this is 10 minutes, then I'm moving a smaller distance because I'm going slower.